Hello, I think we have a lot of people here today with us. So I think we should go ahead and start the session. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our call today and this amazing session. Today, we have a very interesting person with us today, as you can already see her, Sarah. She is not only a certified health and nutrition coach, but she is also a head chef and vegan recipe developer of an organic farm-to-table plant-based cafe called Copper and Cloves, which is in the heart of Bangalore, Indranagar. And she is here with us today to share a very simple one tray baked recipe. Yeah, awesome. Thank you for coming and joining us today, Sarah. I would like you to take the stage now, but just to let everyone know, if you all have any questions, we'll be opening the comment section up in the last half an hour. So please leave your comments, questions in. Over to you.
Great, thanks, Michelle. Can you hear me okay, everyone? Yeah, all good? Great, I'll get started then. So yeah, as Michelle said, I'm Sarah. I'm the founder of Copper and Cloves. I have a real passion for making healthy cooking both easy and super delicious. And I think that that's where people, I feel, think of healthy cooking as boring or tasteless or as kind of like unsatisfying, leaving you hungry. And I started my cafe, Copper and Cloves, at the Organic World to kind of prove that that doesn't have to be the case. And that's you know, where some of the kind of recipes that I'm going to be showing you today is the kind of food we have there. I also have an online blog where you can catch some of these kinds of recipes. And I think, you know, it will all be online and on our social media as well, both of our social medias as well. So I'm going to get straight into it so that we can take more questions at the end. So today's session is all about it's kind of all about cooking with an oven, and I'm going to be talking a lot about my philosophy of plant-based, healthy, nutritious cooking. So for those of you that have an oven at home, this is a really simple formula that I'm teaching you. I'm not teaching you like one specific recipe and that you don't follow it, it won't work. I'm kind of going to try and teach you like a formula that you could use with whatever you have in your fridge to create the same kind of delicious bake every time. All you need is an oven tray that can go in the oven. So I have this really nice one, but you also get these ones which come with the oven, and a really simple OTG oven, which you can get at any electric store. And honestly, I know that an OTG oven isn't necessarily part of like traditional Indian cooking techniques. It's now readily available and can be very inexpensive. And that's why I really believe it's a really healthy way of cooking, where you can use less oil and you can really retain nutrients in vegetables. And therefore, I think it's a necessary part of every kitchen, and it's super like easy. It's a tabletop thing, just a plug-in thing. So that's my little, that's all you need, as well as just a chopping board and a knife. So I'm gonna talk you through the formula and give you examples of the kinds of ingredients that you can use. What is a tray bake is the first question. Okay, so tray bake is simply taking your oven tray, chopping your vegetables into equal sized pieces. I'm going to talk about which vegetables go best together, adding your flavorings, and then shoving it in the oven. And pretty much that's it. And finally taking it out and then adding things at the end to really make it a one-pot dish. So I will talk you through two different varieties today. So the first one is going to be more of what I'm going to call like a Mediterranean style tray bake, which is using, but I'm really, really conscious that like it's really not helpful for me to give you a recipe which requires you to go to like food hall to buy all of the ingredients, because nothing is available in the market. I've been really, really conscious that everything you will recognize, everything you'll easily find in your local market, wherever you tend to do your grocery shopping. So this is the first one. All you need is 2 capsicum, a brinjal, a couple of small ones is also fine, 2 normal onions, some garlic cloves, some tomatoes. I have these absolutely amazing tomatoes of all different kinds, but I have normal tomatoes. I also have cherry tomatoes. You can use either, it really doesn't matter. And I'm going to be, I have a bunch of different herbs, which I'm going to take you through. The first key thing, like when it comes to a tray bake, is making sure you choose veggies which will cook at similar times, like at a similar time period. So that's why I've chosen these, what I'd call soft Mediterranean style, but very easily locally available veggies. And I'm going to be showing you another tray bake just to give you a little heads up, which is a different style of tray bake, which is all more roots. These are hard vegetables. And I mean that like literally they feel hard compared to like the softness of a tomato or a capsicum or a brinjal. So I'm grouping them by how they feel. So you can also then, if you want to mix it up, say you also wanted to add beetroot, you would do it as part of your hard tray bake. If you had other soft veggies, like perhaps a gourd or zucchini, you might add it to your kind of softer tray bake. It's basically, those are the 2 kind of different types, because they'll take slightly different amounts of times to cook. So at the beginning, I'm just chopping my onion into rough wedges. I'm just going to show you here, and I'm shoving it in my tray bake. I'm going to move my board a little closer so that you can really see how I'm doing this. But basically, while I'm doing this, because it's a little boring, me just chopping vegetables, I really want to talk to you about why I think that this is a really healthy way of eating. It's, it packs flavor in, which you'll see towards the end once it's done, because in some ways you can like visually see the way that we caramelize these vegetables in the oven. You can see how much flavor we pack into them. But before that, we are on the HealthifyMe app, and I am a health coach as well. And my biggest priority is equally flavor and nutrition. And my particular philosophy when it comes to nutrition is eating the widest variety of plants that you can in a week. So if you think about nutrients, different vitamins, minerals, what we call phytonutrients, which are the nutrients which come from plants, whether or not you are a vegetarian or whether or not you eat non-veg is actually not what concerns me. What concerns me is, do you eat enough of a wide variety of plants in a week? So the different phytonutrients are found across the full variety of vegetables. So they're actually represented in color. So like this is a red capsicum, this is an orange carrot, this is a purple, purpley dark purple brinjal. Again, beetroot's a different kind of purple. This is a white, like the different, actually the different colors that you see and the different textures that you see in plants represent the different fibers, that's the texture, and the different, the colors represent the different nutrients. It's really as simple as that. Like, you don't need to complicate it and think, oh, exactly which nutrient am I getting? Lysine, anything, any naming each one, calculating the grams. I find that overcomplicates it and makes it a little like challenging to, it kind of makes it a little overwhelming sometimes. So what I find is it's better just to think like, how many colors have I eaten today? or kind of over the course of a week, how many different textures have I eaten? And trying to eat as wide a variety of different plants as you can. I mean, the guidelines are 30 different types of plants over a week. So that's vegetables, fruits, whole grains, not processed grains. So that means like brown rice, black rice, rather than white rice. And it also means nut seeds. It means herbs, leafy greens. It's a whole variety of all the different plants, including legumes and dals, pulses. So if you can eat as many different of those as you can in the week, you know you're getting a well-rounded amount of plant-based protein, fiber, which is absolutely crucial for a healthy immunity, and a full range of the phytonutrients that are available in plants. So as you can see, I've just chopped up my capsicum into what I'd say is kind of like finger width lengths. I'm now going to chop up a tomato into about 8 wedges or so. And you can see I'm literally just shoving it all in here, and I'm going to get to the fun creative part in a minute. Right now I'm just kind of showing you roughly how to chop your veggies. So with tray bakes, you have a really good opportunity to get as many different vegetables in one dish without making loads of different types of things, which can be time consuming. So I guess my plug for having an oven over doing, you know, a veg sabzi, nothing wrong with a veg sabzi, but doing that is that you kind of have to stand over the stove the entire time. Whereas with a tray bake, you really honestly watch what I'm doing. I'm putting a bunch of things in a tray. I'm going to put it in the oven, and then I'm going to forget about it and get on with other things that I can do. So yeah, the first tray bake is almost ready. So this is, as you can see, I've cut the brinjal into kind of wedges. I've cut the capsicum into lengths. I've cut the tomato into wedges, and I've cut the onion into wedges. They're all roughly the same size, okay? I've not kind of put a giant sort of hunk of brinjal with like a very thin piece of capsicum, because that obviously wouldn't cook at the same time. So what will help is that these are all roughly the same size. I happen to have these amazing like vine cherry tomatoes, so because these are small, I can also just shove them in there. So now everything that's in there is roughly the same size, and now I'm going to start adding. So this is the base, right? So now I'm adding the flavors. For the Mediterranean one, it tastes really nice with like some lemon, the freshness of the lemon. So actually in the oven, lemon can kind of roast right up. So I'm literally going to put like, I've cut it into wedges and into small pieces, and I'm just going to shove them in there. So I put like 2 wedges in there cut up. And now I'm going to put my flavorings. So I have some olive oil, which you can get from anywhere. You can also use sunflower oil or another flavorless cooking oil. I'm going to put a teaspoon of salt in there. And I'm also going to put some herbs in there. So I have some, you know, you can use Mediterranean style herbs like basil and oregano. Personally, I think any herb works, and we all have coriander and mint in our fridges at home and in every market. So I'm just gonna put some mint and coriander in there. Dill also works really nicely in this recipe. Each time I've put about a handful, that's it. So I drizzled less than a tablespoon of olive oil. I put the lemon, I've put salt, I've put 2 handfuls of herbs, and now I'm going to put some spices, meaning like I've got some chili flakes here. You could also cut up very finely a little chili. So that gives a little bit of spice. And I'm also going to put some coriander seeds. Again, about a teaspoon. I'm like, for a chef, I'm terrible. I just kind of like freestyle. I go by like how it looks. But I will actually, I do have a lot of these recipes up on my website if you like to be more precise. But what I would encourage you to do is just like not worry too much about the exact proportions, because as long as you're not using vast quantities of oil, so stick to about a tablespoon of oil for the amount of veggies that we've got in this tray. But with spices, I feel like just kind of scatter. I think it's all good. I want to show you what it looks like right now. And then, I mean, we're home cooking. You can use your hand. You can also use two spoons to mix it up as well. So I've just wanted to massage everything in there. You can see that like everything is coated now. I can tell you how it feels, that like nothing is completely bone dry, but you can also see that there is no visible oil at the bottom of the tray. So that's how you want it to look. And that's what makes this healthy, because if you were frying this amount of vegetables in a frying pan, you would have to use triple the quantity of oil. And that is my plug for roasting. So this will just go into the oven like this. But first, let's make our other tray bake so that you can see how I might do that differently. So like I said, this is harder veggies. So the first thing is carrots. Again, we all have carrots. I have one little thing to say, which is that when you are using carrots, please try and buy organic and don't peel them. So it's best to just give them a really good scrub with something that like a brush. And a lot of that nutrition in the carrots is actually contained within the skin. So that's why I would say it's best, if possible, if it looks really dirty, or if you don't have access to vegetables where you really trust how they were grown, then you don't have to. But that is definitely one nutrition maximizing tip that I have for you. Next, we're going to add some sweet potato, which I think, again, this is the kind of sweet potato that's readily available. I'm going to cut it, again, into things which are kind of equal size to the carrot baton. So each carrot I simply cut in half. If it was small, if it was slightly fatter, I cut it into fours. And if it was long, I cut it in half. If it was short, I didn't cut it in half. So again, it's not precise. It's just about keeping things roughly the same size so that they cook at the same rate in the oven. Now I'm gonna just scatter these in the tray. You can also use normal potato for this. Beetroot is also another hard vegetable. And do you know what's actually amazing? We kind of call it turnip in the UK, but oops, okay, that fell on the floor, that's fine. I won't use that. Is that nolcol is a really nice kind of thing, which is very nice when you roast it up. It tastes really, really good. So that's also something that I put in my this kind of tray bake. And I also have some radishes. These are round ones because I was sent some, but actually normally you get the ones which are the same shape as carrots. Those are the ones I normally use. So these, I'm just cutting them into quarters and I'm scattering them around. So this one I wanted to show you using maybe like flavors that you might be more familiar with. So rather than using olive oil, you could use mustard oil, for example. That might give it a nice, like, I'm trying to give it a bit of a South Indian twist. So I put my veggies in the tray. Again, of course, we're going to add salt. That's going to be the same. Then this time I'm going to use mustard oil to give that slightly more like Indian flavor. And again, okay, I need a cough. Again, I don't need to use more than, yes, okay, I managed to open it. I don't need to use more than a tablespoon for this amount of veggies. This time I'm gonna flavor it slightly differently. But again, just as you can see, hopefully, you can sort of this is where you can be creative with such a simple recipe. So like I'm kind of tucking a few bay leaves in there, and I have some really nice fresh curry leaves here. So I'm just gonna, you know, take maybe 2. I love picking curry leaves off the stem. It's so satisfying, just like makes such a nice noise. I need to stop, otherwise I'll overpower it. And I can also put some jeera seeds, which I also have in my spice cupboard. So I'm just putting about half a teaspoon of jeera seeds. And this time I've got the curry leaves in there, but I might also just cut some coriander leaves and add them. So this time we have more of a South Indian flavor vibe going on. This is what it looks like when I've just shoved all the ingredients in there. And I'm just gonna mix it together again with my hands and then show you how. Again, in this case, you can see that each vegetable is glistening, but there is no oil running on the pan. That's good. That's how we want it. I'm just gonna wash my hands. So the next step is obviously the cooking part. So we have the 2 different tray bakes and the 2 different types of veggies. If we want to cook them, I'm just going to put this one directly into the oven. I'll need to stir it halfway through, and it will take about 40 minutes. With this one, we have a little cooking trick, which is basically aluminum foil. So this is a real nutrition point. If I first boil these vegetables in water and then put them in here, I'll lose some of the nutrition, some of the nutrients from them into the water, which I might then discard. In this case, I'm putting them directly raw and they're still hard into here. I'm going to cover my tray with foil very, very tightly. And what will happen is the steam from the vegetables will be released inside the foil. Like the foil will stop the steam from escaping. So they'll essentially steam for the first 15 to 20 minutes. And then what I'm going to do is take the foil off and allow them to crisp up and get really like caramelized, which the caramelization of vegetables is something I'm very passionate about. And actually, I'm going to show you what that should look like. So I hope you can see how simple everything has been. It's taken me about 16 minutes to make these 2 things. And that's why I was kind of blabbering on about all different kinds of things as well. So the next step is to get them into the oven. But in order to make this session more interesting, I did in fact prepare some earlier so that I can show you how they should be when they're ready to come out of the oven. So this one can actually go a little bit longer. So what I can do is I can put my foil one directly into the oven. And honestly, my point is now you can forget about it, okay? I have prepared one earlier, so I'm now going to show you what I would do next. But imagine if I hadn't, I would now have 20 minutes where I could literally do whatever. So the idea is it's super simple. and yet you're getting so much nutrition into your meal. So this one has been in the oven. I did exactly what I said I was going to do, which is I covered it with foil for the first 20 minutes, and then I took the foil off and I allowed it to crisp up. Now, I want to show you what I mean by crisping up and what you're looking for so that you know what to look for when you make this yourself. Okay, so this is, it's come out of the oven, and this, I'm just getting it to focus, is a caramelized thing. So you can see the sweet potato is both soft. It became soft in the steaming section when I kept the foil on, but now it's got a little brownness to it. But it's not brown because it's been like deeply fried. It's just got that little bit of caramelization, which basically is what makes food delicious. Any chef will tell you that you know, and you probably know this from cooking. If you do cook, you know, you've got to brown the onions before or brown the paste. And it's that caramelization that brings flavor. It's exactly the same in Western cooking. You need to caramelize things to get flavor. And caramelization is somewhere between it looking like steamed and fluffy, and of course the extreme is it being burnt. So you have to catch it at that point. So in this case, everything is caramelized nicely. You've got like a bay leaf in there. Your curry leaves have obviously gone a little bit crispy. And I've got some coriander seeds in here, which have also gone a little bit golden brown. How do I make this a complete meal? So right now I've got lots of different types of vegetables, nutrients, like I said, different colors are in there. Now, in order to make it a complete meal, I want to finish it off. And my trick or tip is, you know, whenever you cook a little bit of dal, whenever you're like, for example, boiling chana. So here's one I made earlier. So I have some cooked mung dal. It's just simply cooked, just in salted water. And what makes this a one pot dish is I'm gonna add the cooked mung directly into the tray. And what I'm doing now is stirring it in, and almost like, if you can hear, you know, like scratching up the juices which have been released from the veggies while it was cooking, and allowing the mung dal to get absorbed into those veggies. And we can now also finish it off. So we may want to drizzle a little bit of a cold pressed oil now. So we can always drizzle a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, or I have some flaxseed oil, and I also have some hemp oil. These are really, really healthy oils, which are good fats, which we need for healthy skin and hair, and even for healthy metabolism and even healthy weight loss. So a tiny bit of that and a squeeze of lemon always freshens things up. So you can squeeze lemon over the top. And then what I like to do to make things more flavorful, obviously I'll taste it to check the salt and pepper, but is to add a little crunch. So I've just stirred in what I've added. And then in this case, I might add some cashews. And with this South Asian, South Indian one, I kind of love to add like sliced fresh coconut. And then what I do is I just put it back in the oven just to toast up the coconut and the cashews. And honestly, then you've got a really, really delicious, varied meal full of different types of plants. So we've got like the nuts, they're going to be giving you protein. The mung is going to be giving you protein. You've got the different fibers and nutrients coming from the roast veggies. Now, if you eat non-veg, I don't, I'm vegan. I might slice up some tofu and have this alongside this as a side dish. If you do eat non-veg, like in you're cooking chicken, you had like a chicken breast and then you had these two tray bakes as like two separate sides, honestly, you're packing so much nutrition in addition to your, your non-veg protein source, which is, that's something I'm really, really passionate about. I think sometimes when people start to pay attention to what they eat, they become so consumed by the idea of protein and focusing on protein that they forget about fiber and the variety of nutrients available from plants. And the variety of nutrients available from plants are really, really crucial for gut health, which is my big passion. And having a healthy gut involves eating as many different types of plants as possible. So this is my kind of South Asian style tray bake, which I'm going to put some things that are now fresh on the top of it. So it always looks lovely when you just scatter some fresh herbs over the top as well. Again, coriander leaves, tanya leaves will be a really good one here. So that is my roasted roots. You could add any different kind of nut or seed as your topping. And you could add, you can add different things on the top as well. Like if you wanted to, we also have some really nice pomegranate seeds, which make things look really, really nice. You could add paneer in and stir it through as well. So I'm just trying to give you as many different ideas for keeping the variety in this case. Let me just show you the final one, because I'm sure now we can take questions as it is 5:30. So we said we'd start taking questions halfway through. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take out here's one I made earlier, which is one thing I forgot to mention, which I've just realized is another thing that you can do is literally take whole garlic cloves like this. So you don't need to do anything through them. You don't need to chop them up. And you can just put these directly into your raw tray bake. That's what I did with this one. And now, okay, it's a little bit hot, but I have fingers that can handle it. You can see that this whole roasted garlic is actually completely soft and malleable. And that means I've just roasted this in the oven for the last 35 minutes without foil. With soft vegetables, you really don't need foil. They'll anyway soften and release their juices, and you don't need to steam them because they're not hard. So I'm going to put this is the one which I haven't baked yet, directly into the oven. But this one, which you can see here, you can see now that everything which we put in, the tomatoes and the capsicum, the onion, have become soft. And you've also got some caramelization on, for example, this piece of onion, which has become nice and brown and golden brown. You're looking for golden brown, not black. The herbs have wilted. Even the lemon pieces have become like caramelized and golden. And like I said, your garlic cloves, now you can just pop them out of their papery skins and they will add so much flavor. And what I'm going to do with this one is I've got some pre-cooked chana. Again, this is not, I'm sure I don't need to tell you how to cook chana, but it's just pressure cooked with salted water for 3 whistles. And again, I'm putting it directly into this tray. So I'm not taking a separate dish and adding these 2 in, because what I want to do is actually scrape up again. Okay, this I really want to show you. So like there is some caramelized kind of juices here. It's not oil, it's the like imagine a tomato as it roasts, it kind of releases those juices and then they kind of get stuck on the bottom of the tray, which is actually delicious. And so now I'm just stirring that in and almost like scraping up so that it all marries together beautifully. Again, the principle is the same principle each time. Finally, in order to finish this off, we're going to add some additional flavors into this. I might just season it. It just needs a tiny bit more salt because more liquid that was released from the tomatoes has kind of washed it away. This time I've got pumpkin seeds. So I'm just going to add them as the crunch onto the top. Again, if you eat cheese, you could add paneer, or, you know, if things like feta cheese work beautifully, you can get some really amazing Indian fetas now. And oh, I can see someone's asked oven setting, which is such a good question. You want it to be on the little icon, which has 2 lines. It's basically called roast or bake. And you want your temperature to start off at about 180 to 200. And then when you take the foil off, you may need to just check and lower it. It depends how like, one thing I always say about ovens is, please use your senses, like use your eyes and your ears and your nose, because ovens are not the same temperature. Like, I know this every time I cook at my mom's, I like burn things because her oven is just hotter than mine. So when I put it at a setting, I'm imagining one level of cooking, and I'm so used to that level of cooking that I kind of forget about it, and then I scorch things. So you should not, I mean, I'm saying roughly 180 to 200. You need to judge within that. If things are burning quickly, just turn it down. Yeah, that was a really good question, and I'm sorry that I didn't say that earlier. And yeah, what you want is, on my oven, which is a Morphy Richards, it has like 2 lines, which means, and a fan, which means like it's on bake with a fan assisted. Some aren't fan assisted, that doesn't matter, it just takes a little bit longer. But you don't want it to be on grill, because then only the top will get cooked, but you're not trying to grill things. Actually, you're trying to bake them. So it might be bake, it might be roast, depending, different ovens have different ways of describing it, or different icons. So again, it's a little difficult to say what it is. But it's definitely not only heat coming from the top or only heat coming from the bottom. It's heat coming from both sides. And if there's a picture of a fan, you should have that.
Sarah, would you like me to pick out questions for you?
Yes, please do.
All right. Okay. Somebody has asked, is there a replacement for an oven for people who don't have an oven? What can we do?
I mean, it's difficult. This session, the idea is to kind of help you to see how an oven can assist you in your day-to-day life, because the alternative, of course, is you could use, I mean, these are ingredients which go together and flavors which go together, and they would, I mean, you can obviously make a sabzi, but you get a different texture when you do that. If you have a microwave, and it has an oven setting, like, because what I'm talking about is an OTG oven. It isn't a microwave combo, but your microwave combo should be, some of them have, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a roast setting, basically. I find personally that those are more expensive and less effective. I know people need microwaves to like defrost things and heat things up, and that's totally fine. But for roasting things in this way, and also for baking things like cakes, you really are better off with an OTG if you don't have a built-in like proper oven. So it's difficult for me to say what is the alternative. I mean, a microwave is an alternative, but I guess if you're trying to do this in on a stove, the key thing is to try and minimize oil, and to think about the flavor combos and layering the flavors in the same way that we have here. Somebody else I saw ask, should you preheat the oven? Yes, you should always preheat your oven. I should have said that. You should preheat your oven before. So as you're chopping the vegetables, just whack it on. Like, that's preheating it. Yeah.
What about an air fryer? Somebody also asked if we can use an air fryer.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, an air fryer is a completely different thing. I don't have one, but I love them. My friend has one, and it's really fun. Like, it's also a healthy way, but that is a healthy alternative to frying, not a healthy alternative to roasting. If you have that, you can't really you could do these kinds of vegetables, your roasts. You could do like a carrot, sweet potato, and radish or beetroot, like wedges, and you could air fry them. And then you could maybe toss them in similar flavors. But you couldn't obviously put the mung into the air fryer, or, you know, like you wouldn't come up with the same thing.
Okay, the final vegetables will be crispy or soft like steam boiled. Could you tell about the consistency of the?
Yes, the answer is both. It's such a great question. So, I mean, it's hard to show you, obviously, and this is why I really struggle to do these things online, because like I got into cooking because I love feeding people and I just want to like give you the food to taste. But like, as it's in my own home, I can just pick this up. Obviously, in my cafe, I would never do that. But you can see that it is soft, okay? It's soft inside. But you can also see that like the edges, particularly like on this one, whilst it's soft, there is like an edge on this, okay? Like a roasted golden brown edge. And so it's kind of, this part feels like crispy, and this part is soft, but it doesn't snap, like it kind of breaks apart. I use the word caramelized so much when I'm doing these cooking lessons. Like, you want to caramelize things. When you're talking about these kinds of vegetables, they're mostly soft. But look at this. This is like a slightly golden brown capsicum. And even the tomatoes, like, and the onion has gone a little bit golden and crispy. And I can also see someone's just asked baking time. That, as I was kind of explaining, it really varies depending on your oven. For the root veggies, which are harder, I would say, as a rule of thumb, but please use your senses and your intuition. As a rule of thumb, cover them in foil for between 20 to 25 minutes. Take the foil off. You'll see they look very pale but soft. Then keep the foil off and keep them in, give it a stir and keep them in for about 25 minutes. Again, so in total, you're about 45 to 50 minutes for the root veggies. This whole thing doesn't need foil. It just needs one stir in the middle. And after that, you will see that it's begun to caramelize. And you want it to look soft, like no capsicum should, okay, this is maybe a good way of thinking about it. I'll just show you. Okay, so this is a raw capsicum, right? So if I break it, it kind of, you couldn't probably hear that, but it snaps. With this capsicum, it's become soft, so that obviously it's not snapping, it's fully bendy, but there is that caramelization on the sides.
Sarah, could you also tell us about, there are a couple of questions about the oil that you use, and it would be nice if you could tell people about the alternative oils that we can.
The quantity and the type. So there's two key things, like, as I said, why I really, really love these kinds of dishes compared to making a sabzi on the stove. One is, even though I'm a chef, I'm a lazy cook. I like being able to shove things in the oven and then get on with other things. And secondly, it's the amount of oil. Like I said, you just need to coat it. Now, the kinds of oils which cook well, I really have a plea. I'm not someone, as I hope I've made clear, who advocates like only fancy ingredients. Even though I cook continental style food, I do it with local ingredients. I source everything in my cafe locally and in my home. I don't spend my money in these imported food shops. But there are amazing Indian-made, Indian processed oils, which are called cold pressed oils. So I'm sure, you guys talk about this on HealthifyMe. Please don't use processed, oils that come in like a floppy bag. They are cheaper, but you pay for it with your health. You should use cold pressed oils. So mustard oil, this is an organic, beautiful brown, which I love. And this is a cold pressed mustard oil. That is the key word. The other key words are extra virgin or virgin. Again, this is flaxseed oil. Again, it says cold pressed. Okay, I think it's not showing. Olive oil, you should use extra virgin olive oil for drizzling at the end. You can use what we call just like normal olive oil for roasting. For the South Indian flavored one, you should use, you can also use coconut oil. Again, cold pressed coconut oil. It tends to come in jars rather than floppy plastic bags or plastic bottles. So that's one of the best switches anyway for the environment. So I would really urge all of you to think about oils as they are slightly more expensive when they're cold pressed. I'm not only talking about imported. I mean, unfortunately, olive oil is always imported because we don't make it in India. All other oils like sunflower, mustard, groundnut oil, coconut oil, they're all grown locally in India. They're processed in India, but you need to get the ones which are cold pressed, and you should get the ones in glass bottles, please.
Okay, and we have another very interesting question, which I'm also curious about. In which tray will the broccoli and cauliflower go?
What a great question. I wanted to get a cauliflower for this, but I didn't find a nice one in the market, and I only cook, like I said, I just go to the market and I try and cook seasonally. It's such a good question. I would add it to this one because it's soft, and cauliflower, I actually feel that, like, I used to really not like cauliflower when I was young because I grew up in the UK and it was always like boiled and then covered in cheese. And I was just like, okay, whatever. When you roast it with these kind of flavors, this is the Mediterranean style one, it kind of softens and it gets these like golden brown bits on the outside and it absorbs like a sponge. It's beautiful. So it absorbs like the lemon and the chili and like, you know, it gets the salt and the herbs in there, and it tastes so good. So I would really say that cauliflower or broccoli would go nicely in your softer one. It doesn't really need to be steamed first, especially not when it's cooked with because the juices of the tomato will be released in the cooking and the cauliflower will just absorb that right up. So that's that will help it to cook. However, having said that, you could add them into here. And I've just seen someone mention, like, you know, any other kind of Indian style veggies. I'd already mentioned like nolkol, which is available everywhere. You can also put gourd. You can put remove the skin and chop up any, I wouldn't use like bitter gourd actually, because obviously it's very difficult to balance the flavor and we all know it tastes best fried. But like a bottle gourd or a snake gourd, you could also put into this one. It's really good. I do that regularly. You know, we've got radishes in this one. And yeah, if anyone has any other vegetables that they want to throw at me and I'll say like what I would put it with or what flavors it needs, feel free. But I think I have mentioned quite a lot of the normal veggies like brinjal. You know, this is the dark skinned one, but even the small stripy ones, similarly, you just chop them into the same kind of size and just shove them in.
Okay, so we have another question. Can we add carbs to these trays and how? I was super curious about.
For carbs, yeah. So, I mean, anyway, we've added our pulses in at the end. And pulses are both a source of plant-based protein and carbs. To me, that's the beautiful thing about eating in a plant-based way. It's very few things are like one thing. You know, our nuts, which we've added, are protein and fats. Our pulses, which we've added, are protein and carbs, but slow release carbs, which are obviously better. And all vegetables contain a very small amount of carbs, as well as all the fiber and phytonutrients. But if the question is, can we add grains to this? The answer is hell yes. I really feel that like some brown rice, pre-cooked brown rice, cook it al dente, not soft and mushy, but like still with a bite. So brown rice, millets, pearl barley, like jawar, any grain actually. But again, I'm gonna give a little shout out for whole grains, always over processed grains. Like white rice is simply rice where all the protein and nutrition that's contained in the bran has been removed. I'm not saying that never eat white rice. There's a time and a place always, particularly for celebrations, but it's definitely not your everyday grain. Actually, like I said, the best thing to do is variety. So one day, if you're making this, you know, today I've added mung, tomorrow I might add like a cup of brown rice and stir that through. It will absorb the flavors. It will be delicious. Another time I might put 2 cups of cooked millet. One is not better than the other. Brown rice isn't better than millet. You know, chana isn't better than mung dal. My plug is variety. The best thing about all of this is changing it up regularly. And that's why I wanted to give you a formula rather than a recipe, because each time if you make it different, that's genuinely better for you than me saying, oh, this dish is the healthiest with this carb source and this, you know, with this pulse or this grain. Actually, one is not healthier than the other, but a variety is healthier than sticking to the same thing over and over again. So the answer is yes, you can add carbs, you can add whole grains, but don't just stick to that. Like sometimes put pulses also.
Super. Okay. Another question. Would you cook the tofu in a pan before adding it to the roasted veggies?
Such a good question. Actually, what I would do is I would take a firm tofu. In Bangalore, you know, we have so much amazing vegan food available. One is a firm tofu. I would marinate it. I put the veggies in I do everything which you saw me do, put it in the oven. Before I started chopping the veggies, I would have like marinated the tofu in something really simple, just like some like garlic crushed with lemon and maybe salt and some olive oil, and toss the tofu in that and leave it in that. I'd put my veggies in the oven, and when I think there's about 20 minutes left, I'd put the tofu in, stir it in, and so it will roast. But if it roasts for too long, it becomes dry, and no one wants that. So I'd wait for the veggies to get a little, you know, release their juices. Meanwhile, the tofu is marinated, and I'd pop them in just before, like about 20 minutes before the end. So in the case of this one, that might be like after the first 10, 15 minutes of cooking, I just put my tofu, which I've marinated in something simple, like I said, garlic, lemon, olive oil, salt. And I put the entire thing, including any marinade which is left, in there. With this one, I probably, I could include it in the steaming part because that would keep it moist from the beginning. You just don't want it to get crispy and dry on the outside and it's still kind of cold and raw on the inside. So yeah.
Okay, super. And can we add any leafy vegetables in the oven or to these dishes?
Any what, sorry?
Leafy vegetables.
Leafy.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. So towards the end, it doesn't need to be in there the whole time because, like, okay, I'll show you. Like this one, we'd added coriander, right? And it kind of, in a good way, has disintegrated. That's good because that flavor will be fully in there. If you're adding something like spinach, you don't really want it to disintegrate inside of it. I would say just before the end, I would add something like spinach, finely chopped, and stir it through and let it again absorb some of those flavors and like wilt in. That would be a great way of adding nutrition. Otherwise, if you wanted to make it more like a salad, say you've got this and you pop it in a bowl and put it on the table and then like cover it with, say, methi leaves. Like methi leaves are a great source of iron and a really, really good vegetable. And if you have something like arugula or kale, but I know those aren't as available everywhere, but like everyone has access to, like, you know, methi, amaranth, palak, you can just sprinkle it on the top as well for something fresh. But if you want it to cook, I would put it in maybe 7 minutes before the end and stir it through and allow it to kind of absorb the juices.
All right. Okay, we have a very fun question. So should we eat this tray bake as a salad or as a sabzi?
Oh my God, I love, whoever asked that, I love you. I think that is completely up to you, and that's the versatility of this. So, okay, for example, say I am going to have some, like say someone has cooked like some dal or some kind of Indian dish, then I would make sure it was still warm and I'd eat it like a sabzi on the side. But what I was just saying about like putting raw leaves on the top of it and maybe garnishing it like with some delicious pomegranate seeds and some crunchy nuts, I could put that like into a dabba and take it to work. Obviously, none of us are going to work at the moment, but hopefully one day we will again. And it would have fully cooled down and I'll eat it as a salad. So I genuinely think that the same dish, and this is why I'm this big advocate of like cook once and eat twice or eat thrice. Like I could make this, okay, and then I could have half of it alongside my hot meal, say alongside, you know, an actual sabzi or a dal which has been there, or you know maybe a stir fry and this. And then, or if you eat non-veg alongside like your roast chicken or your, you know, your cooked chicken dish, and you have this alongside it. And then the other half of this same bake, I would keep to one side, allow it to cool, and then make it up like a salad and have it the next day. And maybe I'd add some, I mean, personally, I would add vegan cheese because I'm vegan, but you could add, you know, chunks of paneer, you could add the tofu, and then it becomes a one pot salad as well. And then you pull the leaves. You could put some like fresh mint leaves along with some methi leaves, drizzle of olive oil, another squeeze of lemon, top it with some pomegranate seeds, and have it as a delicious salad. So I love that question. Thank you.
And another interesting question. So, what about the slimy veggies like a lady's finger?
That is such a good question. I have had some success with roasting Bindi. But I actually agree, it doesn't really go that well in a tray bake because it has such a specific cooking, it has such a specific texture that it sort of needs its own space, because I feel that when you roast it alongside, say, onions, the onions are still raw and the Bindi is crispy. Or if you put it with too much like vegetables that release juices like tomatoes and capsicum, they release their juices and it never crisps up and it stays slimy. So I actually do love, my recipe for roast Bindi is simply to take each Bindi. I don't have one with me, but imagine this is a Bindi, and just cut it in half so that you've got you can see the seeds in the middle. Toss it in, again, very minimal oil. And that is, again, the beauty of roasting it rather than frying it, where I find you need quite a lot of oil. And sprinkle it with whatever spice powders you like. I love just a really simple salt, chili powder, and coriander powder, and toss it in that. And then ensure that each one is this way up so that you can see the seeds inside. So that dries out the slime, and you just cook it in the oven for like, depending on your oven, between 15 and 20 minutes. And then some are kind of still, you get little bits of softness, but a lot of crispiness. And that is how I would roast Bindi. And I don't think they can go in tray bakes because they interact with the other vegetables in a way that I think can make them not shine.
Okay, I hope that question was answered. We'll take the last two questions. We'll go with the last one first. If can you also tell us how to store it if we overcook, like we always land up doing?
How to store it once it's cooked?
Yes.
Yeah, and so honestly, please, this is another motto of mine: cook once, eat twice, if not thrice. Like even when I'm cooking for myself alone, I would easily cook this much. I obviously would not eat that much in one go, but I might have like a little bit of each. I would then take the leftover and put it into a like a dabba normal kind of thing. like this kind of thing, and just keep it in the fridge. You could put it in the freezer, that it would obviously keep indefinitely, and then just defrost it. You will find more sogginess when you do that. But then you can always just roast it up again and get rid of that sogginess. Personally, I never really need to do that because I like to cook once. And like I said, eat it in a variety of different ways. So, you know, I would store this, say, in here. I'd keep them separate so I can use them in different ways. So like, to me, this would be delicious, even like on a slice of bread, like, again, heat it up. And like, again, I put vegan cheese, you could put another kind of cheese on the top and like roast it. Or it might form the basis of even like a stew. Actually, you could also blend this up and make a soup because all the flavor is there, and you could just add a little bit of stock. So I mean, and again, with this one, I might make a salad out of it to eat the next day. I might have it alongside something else which I cook the next day. So yeah, that's my, you know, obviously please do keep it in glass or stainless steel, not in plastic. Plastic isn't the best way to store food for any period of time because often it isn't food safe. So it's always better to have, you know, a bunch of these and a bunch of stainless steel things and just keep it in the fridge. And it would keep in the fridge, honestly, if you got it in the fridge quickly, it would keep well in the fridge for 3 to 4 days, completely fresh if it's tightly sealed, and if it's in a fridge which is properly at the correct temperature, which is 4 degrees, 3 to 4 degrees for food storage.
Sorry, I think there's still a lot of confusion about the roasting and the baking part. So it'll be great if you could like just quickly take us through that bit. The roasting part of the vegetables and the baking part of the vegetables.
I mean, roasting and baking is not, I mean, I'm using those words fairly interchangeably. I mean, if you want me to run through the cooking process again.
Yes, that could be great.
Yeah. So you cut up the vegetables while they're still raw. You cover, I mean, if we're talking about these kinds of vegetables, like root vegetables, which are, you know, these are vegetables which are hard, you know, they feel hard, you can't press them. So for those kinds of vegetables, it's the same temperature throughout, like 180 in the oven, 180 on our OTG. We cover them with foil, and we let the juices that are released as they cook steam them in their own juices for the first 20 minutes. Then we remove the foil and we allow it to cook for a further 20 minutes. For softer vegetables like tomatoes, brinjal, capsicum, we just put it in the oven and allow it to roast for, you know, 25 to 35 minutes in total, probably. If your oven, depending on your oven, it may need a little longer. You may notice that it's starting to catch, and in which case you can take it out sooner. So there isn't, when I say roast, roasting in this case, I mean, this is kind of how we talk about cooking in the oven where I grew up in the UK. Roasting is simply like putting things in a roasting tray and putting it in the oven. You can also call that baking vegetables. Also baking, obviously, normally specifically refers to baking things like cakes and whatever. But in this case, your oven may call it roasting and may call it baking. The setting that you're looking for is when, you know, I don't know whether you can see, but there are heating elements at the top and at the bottom. You want both of them to be activated with whatever your setting is. I can't say because I literally have 2 ovens because I use it so much. They are both the same brand, but they use the different things. So this one will say, this Morphy Richards has a setting which is just bake. And that's the one that heats both elements. So that's the one to use. In this one, it's an icon with the 2 elements highlighted. So that's obviously the one to use. Some ovens might say roast. So roasting and baking doesn't actually like mean something different necessarily. Different brands use those words differently. The key thing is to have your oven on a setting where the top and the bottom element is hot. And if there is a fan icon, that should be on, because it's always helpful to have the heat circulated by a fan. If your oven doesn't have that, which loads don't, it doesn't matter. It just takes a little bit longer sometimes. So I hope that clarifies it. I'm sorry if I've been using the terms roast and bake interchangeably. It is because in this case, it kind of is. It just means put it in a hot oven and leave it. That's kind of what it means.
I hope that answers everybody's question. Would you like to take up one last question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So dried herbs or fresh herbs, which one is better? And we also had another question about coconut milk, if it is better to prepare it at home or buy store-bought.
Cool. So I'll do the herbs one first because it's super relevant. Either is fine. For this one, if you have dried herbs, it will be cool because so much water is released from like tomatoes and capsicum that, you know, the juices will kind of reinvigorate the dried herbs and allow that flavor to go throughout the dish. Personally, because of packaging, I prefer not to just have a cupboard full of dried herbs, which come in for some reason like tiny bottles, which then get thrown away. So I'm trying to run a zero waste kitchen as much as possible. So I just love buying fresh herbs because I just get through them because you can use them for everything. I also love the way that they kind of melt into the, you know, they wilt as they cook, and that provides a lot of flavor. And then you can use the exact same herbs to garnish at the top because, you know, when you've got something really cooked like this, and then you have a couple of fresh like leaves on the top, it looks really beautiful. So they're a bit more multi-purpose. So that's why I tend to opt for fresh herbs. I don't really advocate buying loads of dried herbs. But having said that, if you have dried herbs already, I would just, if you have like, tends to be oregano, rosemary, those are lovely flavors to go with this. So just sprinkle like a little bit on, but just don't go overboard because they can be a little jarring in texture. And then the other question about coconut milk, always at home if possible, because there are very few brands which don't add emulsifiers. You know, they add emulsifiers so that it stays uniformly thick and creamy throughout. But we all know when we make coconut milk, it quickly separates, and there's nothing wrong with that. There is one brand, which I'm happy to mention, called Pure and Sure, which is an Indian brand which makes coconut milk in India and doesn't add anything other than just the coconut and the water, and it's blended together. It separates. You know, when I use it in a lot of things, cooking, it does tend to separate. If I'm not able to make my own coconut milk, I do have a can of that on hand. It does separate, but that doesn't really matter to me because I can just easily whisk it up. Having said that, if you can make it at home, it's zero waste because you've just got a coconut and you just grate it and then blend it. You can use the pulp in cooking, in baking, and then you can use the coconut milk also, and you don't have any wastage because everything can just be composted. I will make a little plug for composting at home if you can. You may have noticed I've just been scraping all of my compost into, I have a bin down here and I just have a compost on my balcony. So yeah, that's why I would say for the zero waste aspect and for the fact that, you know, I advocate eating as little processed food as possible. Emulsifiers and additives can do things to our gut health that we don't really want them to do, like because they're sticky and they can affect the way our gut microbes live in our gut and they can clump them together. So there's some initial research about that. That's one of the reasons why we might not want to just avoid things which have emulsifiers in them. at the same time, they're not going to kill you overnight. If you have a carton of coconut milk, you can always use that in whatever way you want, in a curry. I like it with my coffee. I also use it in vegan baking. But honestly, if you can make coconut milk at home, do, because it's zero waste.
Awesome. Sarah, everybody is very curious where they can find this and other such recipes. So could you probably tell our viewers where they can find?
Sure, that's so nice. You can follow me on Instagram at Copper and Cloves. I'm always putting recipes up there. And I also have a website, which is www.copperandcloves.com. And the recipes are then written there. We have a couple of recipe videos. You can also link to our YouTube channel from there, where we have some recipe videos on the channel. And yeah, wherever you live in India, when hopefully one day travel again is possible and we're all safe, even when we step out, and hopefully all of this is a distant memory, I would love you to come to my cafe, which is called Copper and Cloves, and it's at the Organic World in Indranagar. It's a farm-to-table cafe with all organic food, and you'll find these kinds of dishes. It's fully plant-based, and I've kind of nutritionally balanced every single thing in the menu. So would obviously love to meet you in person and have you come down. But in the meantime, like, do cook at home, do try out cooking with an OTG, and tray bakes. There are recipes. On Instagram and on my website are the best places to go, probably.
And whoever's curious about today's session, we've put out a link, which is a recap of the entire recorded session. So you can go ahead and refer it.
Thank you.
We're done with questions as well, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us. Super fun and interesting recipe. I'm going to just go ahead and try it myself tonight for dinner.
Yes.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for joining.